everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at a pretty, how do I even say this? Profound idea, I guess. We're going to be talking about the idea of humanity as God's caliph on Earth.
Wow, yeah, that's a big one for sure.
It is. And we'll be taking a look at this through a text inspired by the work of Islamic scholar Fethullah Gülen.
Okay.
And specifically his article, The Duty of Man on Earth, which was published in the Turkish journal Ekoloji.
Right.
So this topic really makes you think about, our purpose on this planet and kind of what we're supposed to be doing here. You know what I mean?
It really does. And, for a lot of people, the idea of a caliph might not be that familiar.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
It's a really important concept in Islam, and it's a lot more than just like a ruler.
Oh, okay.
It's more like, a trustee, someone who's been given a huge amount of responsibility and even a sense of honor.
So not just a king with a fancy title. It's more like a caretaker with a truly cosmic job description, I guess.
Exactly. And it's even more interesting when you think about how Gülen connects this role to mirroring God's attributes.
Yeah.
Like knowledge, wisdom, generosity.
Right.
These aren't just qualities of God. They're also meant to be like a guide for how we as caliphs interact with the world around us.
Yeah, so that's a pretty high standard, right? The text even mentions how being God's caliph on Earth gives humanity a great potential.
Right.
So what kind of potential are we even talking about here?
Okay, well, just imagine this, okay? Us humans, we have this incredible capacity for both creation and destruction. We think about the pyramids in ancient Egypt. They're testaments to just how creative and ingenious humans can be.
Yeah.
But then you contrast that with what's happening today, like deforestation, right?
Right.
And that's a pretty clear sign of our potential for harm.
Yeah, that's a good point. The text doesn't shy away from that kind of darker side of things either.
It doesn't.
It criticizes how we often get so caught up in acting according to our own desires that we totally forget about respecting the planet. It's like we've totally forgotten that we're supposed to be caretakers.
Yeah, and that's where I think understanding some key Islamic teachings can really help.
Okay.
For example, the Quran stresses the importance of striving for good deeds. And there's another verse that highlights how much God loves people who do good.
Okay.
And these ideas are directly related to our responsibilities as caliphs,
So it's not just about having the title caliph, it's actually about living up to that title.
Absolutely.
Through our actions, I get it. But doing good can be a pretty vague concept.
It can.
So what would that actually look like for us as caretakers of the earth?
Well, Gülen suggests that we should work on cultivating things like mercy, compassion, grace.
Okay.
And try to apply those not just to other people, but to the environment itself.
Yeah, that's a big shift from the way we usually do things.
It is.
It's making me realize that this concept goes way beyond just each of us as individuals.
It does.
It's like every little decision we make, from the food we buy to the energy we use it, all becomes part of this larger responsibility.
Exactly. And it all comes back to remembering this core idea.
What's that?
That we don't actually own this earth. We're just entrusted with its care.
Okay.
It all ultimately belongs to God.
That's a pretty humbling thought. It makes you wonder how we can even approach all the complexities of modern life with that in mind.
It does.
The text even warns us against falling into negative influences.
Right.
So are we talking about things like greed or just, losing sight of the bigger picture?
I think it's both, honestly.
Yeah.
But before we jump into all that,
Yeah.
I think it's important to really understand the scope of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So I think we should look at some examples from history of how humanity's actions have impacted the earth.
All right. So before we get into solutions, let's take a little trip back in time.
Yeah.
Because if we're really going to be good caliphs, we got to learn from the past, right?
We do.
All right. So let's rewind a bit.
Okay. Yeah, let's think about those ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia for a second.
Okay.
They were able to thrive for centuries because of these really sophisticated irrigation systems.
Oh, wow.
They managed to turn all this dry, arid land into fertile fields. And that's a perfect example of humans using their knowledge and skills to actually work in harmony with nature.
Yeah, it's like they tapped into that potential for good that we were talking about before.
Right, exactly.
But I'm guessing this story has kind of a downside too, right?
Oh, of course. Unfortunately, even the Mesopotamians ended up facing some pretty serious environmental challenges.
Oh, no.
You see, over-irrigation actually led to something called soil salinization.
Okay.
And that eventually played a big role in their decline.
Wow, so it's like a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even when we have good intentions,
Right.
we still need to act with wisdom and foresight.
Absolutely. And that brings us to an important point that the text makes.
Okay, with that.
It talks about how we need both knowledge and understanding to be good caretakers.
So it's not enough to just want to do good.
Yeah.
We have to actually know how our actions are going to affect the world around us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to go beyond just following traditions blindly.
Okay.
And we need to really understand the natural world, in a deeper way.
Yeah, I get it.
Think about all those indigenous cultures that have been managing their environment sustainably for generations.
Right.
They have so much knowledge about their local ecosystems and the delicate balance of nature.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There's a lot we can learn from them.
So basically, we have to blend that ancient wisdom with modern science if we want to get this right.
Exactly.
But that kind of knowledge isn't always easy to find, is it? I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information from everywhere these days.
That's true.
Oh.
It's not always easy to know what's reliable and what's not.
Exactly.
But the good news is that there are resources out there.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, there are all these reputable scientific organizations, academic institutions, and even some really good online platforms that focus on environmental education.
So it's about taking the initiative to actually seek out knowledge from trustworthy sources.
Exactly.
Got it. Something else that struck me in the text was this idea of humanity being created in the best of forms.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's reminding us of our inherent worth, Like we have this intrinsic dignity.
It is. It's saying that, but it's also saying that with that dignity comes responsibility.
Okay.
The text seems to be suggesting that we can reach our full potential, not through dominating or exploiting things, but by recognizing the value in all of creation.
It's like a total shift in mindset, isn't it? From scarcity to abundance, from competition to cooperation.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that image that Gülen uses humans as God's tapestry on Earth.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one.
It is. It's such a vivid image. Like we're all these individual threads woven together into something so much bigger than ourselves.
And each thread is unique, but still essential to the overall design.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
So that tapestry, it represents the amazing diversity of human cultures and perspectives.
Right.
And even the entire ecosystem of our planet.
It does. Each thread, each species, every single ecosystem has a vital role to play.
And that just emphasizes how important it is to respect that diversity.
It does.
But when you look around at the world today, it feels like that tapestry is kind of starting to unravel.
Yeah, I know.
We're losing species so quickly, we're destroying habitats, we're polluting the air and water. It can feel pretty overwhelming, honestly.
It's true. We're seeing the consequences of our actions more and more every day.
Yeah.
But the text doesn't leave us without hope,
Really? What does it say?
It reminds us that we have the power to choose a different path.
Oh, wow.
That we can start weaving a new tapestry.
Yeah.
One that's more sustainable, more beautiful.
That's a powerful image. Okay, so if we're ready to grab the needle and thread, where do we even start? Like, what specific steps can our listeners take to really embody this idea of God's caliph in their own lives?
Well, there are so many ways to contribute, and they don't have to be these big grand gestures.
Oh.
Even simple things like reducing your carbon footprint, supporting businesses that are trying to be sustainable, or even just volunteering in your community can make a difference.
Okay, those are some good starting points. What about if people want to get involved on a larger scale?
Well, there's advocating for environmental policies.
Okay.
Educating yourself about the challenges our planet's facing, and even just spending time in nature.
So it's all about appreciating the beauty and fragility of nature.
It is.
I like that. It sounds like the main idea is recognizing that even our small actions can create a ripple effect.
They can.
Especially when you multiply those actions by millions of people.
Exactly.
It's about reclaiming that sense of agency, remembering that we're not just passive bystanders.
Right. And the text actually tells us to start by purifying our hearts.
Okay.
And remembering God's blessings.
That sounds a little abstract, though.
It does.
How do we cultivate that kind of gratitude and connection in a world that feels so chaotic and disconnected sometimes?
It's like we need to find ways to reconnect with something bigger than ourselves.
It's true. It feels like everywhere you turn, it's all just negativity and bad news.
Right. It could be a lot.
So how can we shift our focus away from all of that?
Things like mindfulness and meditation can really help. Or even just spending time in nature can be incredibly grounding.
Yeah.
It's all about slowing down and paying attention to the present moment.
Yeah.
And really appreciating the simple gifts that we have all around us.
Like what kind of gifts are we talking about?
Yeah, like the fresh air, the sound of birds singing, the feeling of the sun on your skin.
I like that.
These are all reminders that everything is connected, you know,
Right.
and they help us remember our place in all of it.
That actually makes me think of a quote from the text that really stood out to me. It says, "Let us strive to leave a legacy of love, compassion, and harmony for generations to come."
Oh, that's a beautiful one.
It is, isn't it? It's not just a nice sentiment, though. It's also like a call to action. It's saying that what we do today is going to shape the world of tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that idea of leaving a legacy,
Yeah.
that gets right to the heart of what it means to be God's caliph.
Okay, I see what you mean. We're entrusted with this incredible responsibility,
We are.
this chance to be stewards of creation, to actually leave the world a better place than we found it.
It's a big task, but it's also incredibly inspiring, you know?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. It's actually really motivating to know that we have the power to make a difference, even in small ways.
It is.
But I'll be honest, sometimes it's easy to feel kind of lost or overwhelmed.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Like, where do we even begin?
I think the key is to remember that we're not alone in this journey.
What do you mean?
There are so many people and organizations out there that are working so hard to protect our planet,
Mm-hmm.
to promote social justice, to create a more sustainable future.
So connecting with those groups, learning from them, and contributing to their efforts can give us a sense of purpose.
Exactly. It's about finding your place in that larger tapestry of change makers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like each of us adding our own unique thread to the design.
I love that analogy. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the concept of God's Caliph, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I think for me, it's this realization that we're not just passive observers in this world. We're active participants.
We have a responsibility to each other, to future generations, to all living things.
That's right. And within that responsibility, there's this incredible opportunity.
To use our knowledge, our compassion, our creativity to create more just sustainable and harmonious world.
You said it perfectly.
Yeah.
And just like Gülen said, we are God's caliphs on earth.
It's a huge responsibility, but it also comes with so much potential.
It does. It's a call to action.
A call to step into our power, to embrace our capacity for good, and to work together to create a future filled with hope and possibility.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So to all our listeners out there, remember, even small actions can make a big difference.
They really can.
Let's take this concept of God's Caliph to heart and weave it into our daily lives.
Let's do it.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.